If you struggle with written multiplication without a calculator, or you want some strategies to make it quicker and easier for your GCSEs, then you've come to the right place. As with all these videos, you can do as much or as little as you would like to. If you want to just watch the examples, that's fine. Or if you want to have a practice for yourself, which is always the best way to remember how to do things, then grab yourself something to write on and with, and you'll be able to have a go at some practice questions too. If you need a little bit longer to pause the video so you can read through the task board, do that now, as we are going to jump right in. One thing I cannot stress enough is the value of learning your times tables. It will really speed up just about every branch of mathematics for you if you can pull times tables out of thin air and you just know the answer. So if someone says to you, what's 6 times 7? You just know straight away, like it's instinct. I've come across many students in my time that for whatever reason they didn't learn their times tables thoroughly in primary school. Maybe they weren't supported to do so, or they didn't have the right strategies, and as a result have just sort of coasted all the way through using methods like counting on their fingers, which is really hard to do when you get up to bigger times tables, or relying on a calculator, which again is fine if you've got one, but it does slow you down having to type in the calculations compared to when you just know them instinctively. If you think about a circumstance where you might be in the middle of a longer problem, think on exam papers, sort of the 4 to 6 mark questions where there's lots of steps. You don't really want to have to be taking time and breaks from your question to work out times tables. It slows you down and it interrupts your train of thought. So if you are not fluent in your times tables up until 10 times 10, I would highly advise you go away and learn those. There's loads of videos out there on YouTube that teach you the times tables, even back to the way they would have been taught in primary. So if you need to learn your times tables by listening to songs that recite them, that's absolutely fine. You're better off getting this sorted and having a strategy that works. One that I like to use are these little flip cards, and you can make these at home yourself. That's why I like them. There's no cost involved. You literally need a piece of paper or card and a pen. So this is actually half a sheet of A4 if I opened it out. So just cut a sheet of A4 in half, and then again folded that in half and just made these little cuts on one side. Really simple. And write the times table on the top. So as you can see, this is the 6 times table. And it's perfect for testing yourself. So you can lift them all up and you can see the times table underneath. So if you need practice just reciting it, 6, 12, 18, 24, and so on, then you can just see the times table in front of you. You can recite it. And when you make these, you just write the answer to the times table underneath each flap. Really handy. But then one brilliant way to memorising your times table is slowly covering a few up, and not in order, because your brain will respond to the pattern when it's in order, and it will only then know it in order. If you can hide odd ones and still remember the pattern and then start putting more and more down, so for example if I just started with going right 6, 12, and then in my head I've got to think about what that missing one is, 18, 24, and then start to put more down like this, and I go, right, can I still do it? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. You're learning what these missing ones are, and then when you get confident you'll be able to put them all down and test yourself on random ones. And that's the beauty of knowing your times tables. It's not reciting them in order. Just reciting them isn't enough. You need to be able to pull them out of thin air. So I need to be able to say 6 times 6 and you can tell me it's 36. So whilst you're testing yourself, these are really handy because you can ask yourself the question and then check the answer and you've got it there. And you can make one for each times table if you needed one. You might not need one, for example, for the 1 times table. Some people won't need the 2s or the 5s or the 10s, but maybe the 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, they're quite tricky. This is a brilliant strategy to help you learn your times tables. So if you don't know them, learn them before you then progress onto multiplication methods, because any written multiplication method requires you to be able to do up to 10 times 10. And if you can't do that quickly, you're just making it harder for yourself. So if you've not had the opportunity to have a solid education with times tables in the past, make that a key focus and target for yourself now, because it's really, really useful to have this skill down. When it comes to a written method for multiplication, I always advise using the column method. I think it's the quickest and most efficient method. Other methods like the grid method have its advantages if you need something that's broken down into component parts. And the lattice method is one really good way of multiplying decimals, but both of these take an awful lot more setup, which can lead you to making mistakes. It's my belief that when you get your head around the column method and use it regularly, it is the most efficient method to use. We are going to write our multiplication as follows. So I'm putting 24 first and multiplying it by the 7. Now remember, with multiplication you can swap the order. I would always put the number with the most digits at the top and the number with the least digits at the bottom. It just makes your calculation a little bit more simple. As we are only multiplying by a single digit here, we only need one row in our answer space. And you will see as we progress to multiplying by 2 or more digits, you will need a bit more room. Beginning with the 7, we're going to start by saying 7 multiplied by 4, which I know is 28. So I'm going to put the 8 down here in my answer space and put the 2 below as if I was carrying when I'm adding, because we treat it in the same way, we add it on. And then I go back to that 7 and do 7 multiplied by 2. Even though that 2 means 20 in the number 24, I can just treat it as 2 because I'm already in the tens column. So 7 multiplied by 2 would be 14, but then I need to remember to add that 2 that I carried, so that would be 16. So the answer to this question is 168. Here's one for you to have a go at. I will start working through the solution right away, so if you want time to have a go at this question, make sure you pause the video and then hit play when you're ready to see the solution. We've got 35 being multiplied by 4, and once again it's only a single digit we're multiplying by, and so I only need one row or one space to put my answer. 4 multiplied by 5 is 20, so I'm going to put the 0 of 20 in the ones column and then carry that 2 underneath, so 20. 4 times 3 is 12, and I need to remember to add the 2 that I carried, which would be 14. So 35 times 4 is 140. Well done if you got that one right. We're going to move on to the next stage of difficulty. As you can see here, we've got 153 multiplied by 15. Notice how I line up my place value. So my ones are in line, my tens are in line, and my hundreds are in line, even though there's only hundreds in the first number. Also notice that I put the number with the most digits first, not just because it's the first number in the calculation, but because it's the number with the most digits. Now I'm going to do my setup. Because it's a 2-digit number I'm working with, I need to give myself space to write 2 lines of working out. And when I've done each of those multiplications, so I'll do the 5 multiplied by 153, like we saw in the previous example, but then I'll also do the 10 multiplied by 153 and write that below, and then I'll add those 2 values together. So I need to give myself 2 working out spaces and then an answer space. And just to make it clear, it's 2 working out spaces because I'm multiplying by a 2-digit number. If it were a 3-digit number I was multiplying by, I'd need 3 working out spaces. So in my first working out space, 5 multiplied by 3 is 15. So I put down the 5 and carry 1, which I'm just going to pop there. Sticking with the 5, we're going to do all of the 5 multiplication first. Sticking with the 5, 5 multiplied by 5 is 25, plus the 1 we carried is 26. So I put the 6 and carry the 2. And sticking with the 5 again, multiplied by the 1 is 5, plus the 2 we carried is 7. So what I've essentially done there is multiplied the 5 by 153. I now need to multiply the 10 in 15 by 153. Because I've moved into the next place value column, I can't just do 1 times 3 and write 3 under the 5, because that's not what it is. It's actually 10 times 3 we're doing, which would be 30. So when we move into the second place value column, we put a 0 here. We put a placeholder just to show we've moved into the tens. Then I'll do 1 times 3, which is 3, 1 times 5, which is 5, and 1 times 1, which is 1. And some of you may have been able to do 153 multiplied by 10 in your head anyway, because you're familiar with adding a 0 when you multiply by 10. And so now you can see the first row of working out was multiplying 153 by 5, and the second row of working out was multiplying 153 by 10. And then we add these two things together. So we've got 5 add 0 is 5, 6 add 3 is 9, 7 add 5 is 12, so I put the 2 carry the 1, and then 1 add the 1 I carried is 2. So the answer to our question is 2,295. Here's one for you to have a go at. Again, I'll be going through the solution straight away, so pause the video now so you've got time to do it and hit play when you're ready. We have got 213 being multiplied by 18. And because I've got 2 digits in my number I'm multiplying by, I need to give myself room for 2 lines of working out. And then I will be adding those together to get my final answer. And I do find that giving myself this setup reminds me as I go along how to show my working out, and avoids me getting confused and lost along the way. Because I have seen people, when multiplying by 2 digits, trying to do it all in one row of working out, and then they're wondering why they can't do it. And it's because they've not remembered that they'll need 2 lines of working out because they're multiplying by a 2-digit number. So having the setup before you even begin can be really helpful. Notice that I've done this setup before I've even tried to multiply anything together. And we're going to start at the 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Sticking with the 8 times 1 is 8. Plus the 2 I carried is 10. Sticking with the 8 times 2 is 16. Plus the 1 I carried is 17. And then because we're moving into the next place value column, I pop a placeholder, so a 0 in this position. And then I begin 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. And 1 times 2 is 2. And then we add those 2 rows of working out together. 4 plus 0 is 4, 0 plus 3 is 3, 7 plus 1 is 8, and 1 plus 2 is 3. And so our answer to this question is 3,834. Well done if you got that one right. We're now going to see how we can apply this method to numbers involving decimals. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you may prefer to use the lattice method to work out calculations with decimals because it works out quite nicely with decimal multiplication. The problem is the lattice method, if you're familiar with it, you will know, has an awful lot of setup, drawing all the boxes and putting all the diagonal lines in before you can even start to work out the calculation. It's very time consuming and it might put you off a little bit. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to treat this calculation as if it were just whole numbers. So 672 times 8. And then when I get my answer, I'm going to adjust it accordingly, and that's very easy to do. So just like the first example I showed you, 672 multiplied by 8. I'm only multiplying by a single digit, so I'll only need 1 space for my answer. 8 times 2 is 16, so I place the 6, carry the 1. 8 times 7 is 56, add the 1 I carried is 57. And 8 times 6 is 48, add the 5 is 53. So at the moment, this answer is 5,376. However, the original question doesn't ask for 672 times 8. It only asks for 67.2 times 8, which is 10 times smaller. And so if we divide this answer by 10 to make the correct answer 10 times smaller, all that means is we bring our decimal point in one place. So it would be 537.6. And it never hurts to do a bit of estimation in your head to check this answer. So timesing by 8 is not far off from timesing by 10. If I did 67 times 10, that would be 670. So I know my answer's got to be a bit less than 670. And 537.6 is absolutely fine by that measure. Hopefully what you would realise is 5,376 is far bigger than 670. So that tells us we need to adjust our answer. Here's one for you to try the same thing. And once again, pause the video to give yourself a chance to work through it. I'm going to go straight through the solution. So I've done my setup. Notice I've changed this to 274 times 6 so that I've not got to work with a decimal number. Working with whole numbers is a lot easier. 6 times 4 is 24. So I place the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 7 is 42. Add the 2 is 44. And 6 times 2 is 12. Add the 4 is 16. So as it stands, we are at 1,644. But as we know, we multiplied 27.4 by 10 to get 274. So we must ensure we divide it back so we get an accurate value for our answer. So 164.4. And this even works if both values in your calculation are decimals. I'll multiply this first one by 10 to get 67, and I'll multiply this second one by 10 to get 82. And all I'll need to remember when I get to my final answer is because I've multiplied by 10 twice, I'll need to divide by 10 twice at the end. So if I do my setup, 67 multiplied by 82, I'm multiplying by a 2-digit number, so that tells me I'll need 2 spaces for working out, and then I'll add those together at the end. Beginning with the 2, 2 times 7 is 14. Sticking with the 2, 2 times 6 is 12. Add the 1 I carried is 13. Moving into the next column where the 8 is, so I'll need a placeholder. 8 times 7 is 56. And 8 times 6 is 48. Add the 5 I carried is 53. So when I add these together, 4 times 0 is 4. 3 add 6 is 9. 1 add 3 is 4, and we've just got the 5 on its own. So as it stands at the moment, we're at 5,494. However, the question didn't ask for 67 times 82, it only asked for 6.7 times 8.2. And as I said, because we've multiplied 2 numbers by 10, so I've multiplied by 10 twice, I'll need to divide by 10 twice. And divide by 10 and then divide by 10 again is the same as divide by 100. That just means I'd need to bring my decimal point in 2 places, which would be 54.94. And if you wanted to use estimation again just to check this, 6 times 8 is 48. So we know our answer has to be slightly bigger than 48 because this isn't 6 and 8, it's 6.7 and 8.2, both of which are a little bit bigger. So if I'm estimating this to be around 48, but we know it's a bit bigger, 54.94 is a perfectly reasonable answer. However, 5,494 wouldn't be reasonable for that, it's far too big, and so would 549.4 if you only moved the decimal point 1 place. So a little bit of estimation in our heads can just check we've got the approximate value of the number to be accurate. And here is one more for you to have a go at. If you pause the video now so that when you are ready, you can hit play and I'll be going through the solution. I'm going to treat this as 49 multiplied by 35. Using the method hopefully we are starting to become familiar with. Leaving 2 working out lines because I'm multiplying by a 2-digit number, and I'll be adding those together. 5 times 9 is 45. And sticking with the 5, 5 times 4 is 20, plus the 4 is 24. Moving into the next column means I put a 0 here. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 times 4 is 12, plus the 2 I carried is 14. And then if I add those together, we get 5, 11, 7, and 1. So at the moment as it stands, 1,715, but I do have to remember that I've multiplied by 10 twice, so I need to divide by 10 twice, which brings my decimal point in 2 places, which is 17.15, which once again makes sense if we consider that 4.9 is very close to 5, and we're multiplying by 3.5. Well, 5 times 3 is 15, and 5 times 4 would be 20, so I know my answer's got to be somewhere between those. And again, that is just an example of me estimating the answer in my head so I can check that I've got my place value about right. Well done if you got those questions correct and if you took part in that part of the lesson. We're now going to do some multiple choice questions. I will pop a timer on the screen as I know some people like that to keep them on track. However, if you do not like to use the timer, you can just pause the video if you would like more time. That's completely optional. Our first one is 62 times 6, and here are your options. And the correct answer for that one was A, 372. On to the next, we have got 314 multiplied by 13. Here are your options. And the correct answer is B, 4,082. Moving on to those decimals now, we've got 54.1 multiplied by 7. Here are your options. And the correct answer was B again, 378.7. Well done if you got that one right. And one final question, 2.9 multiplied by 7.3. These are your options. And the correct answer for that one was C, 21.17. If you're sticking around for the final section of this lesson, that is the independent practice section. So we've got a mixture of questions on the screen for you to have a go at, just to make sure you've got those skills secure. Pause the video so you've got plenty of time to have a go at these questions. The answers are coming right up so you can check whether or not you've done them right. And here are the answers for these questions, so do go through and check them to make sure you are correct. And if there's anything you didn't get correct, go back through and check your working out. It's another great reason why showing your working out is important, because then you can work out where you've gone wrong and hopefully get a better understanding and move on from your mistakes. Well done for taking part in this video lesson today. Every time you engage in revision in some form or another, you are improving your chances at GCSE. Ensure you're subscribed so you've got easy access to more video lessons as well as revision support. And if you like short form content as well, you can find revision quizzes and tips over on TikTok and Instagram. I'm Charlotte, thank you for watching this video.